Britain is being groomed for humiliating ruin. The question I have to ask is, by whom? I say that this country, more than any other in the West right now, is being abused by those with something to gain from the vulnerability and helplessness that humanity is prone to. Weakness is invariably exploited for pleasure, for gain, and Britain has been made weak, culturally, economically, militarily, in every conceivable way, to an extent that cannot possibly be accidental or the consequence only of bad management and worse decisions. What we are seeing in Britain is the coming to final fruition of Fabian plans devised by wolves in sheep's clothing, those whose symbol is the tortoise that reaches its goal slowly and mostly unobserved. The weaker and more vulnerable Britain is made by design, the more that weakness and vulnerability will attract the sort of individuals and transnational corporation board members who find their gratification in the abuse of the helpless. Maybe, in part, the present generation of Brits is being made to pay the price for Britain's past. Britain mattered in the world once upon a time. It was an industrial powerhouse, rich and influential, militarily dominant. Perhaps in part this country is being brought down as an act of revenge by those who were envious, those who hated us on account of all we had, and yes, those who suffered at British hands. What goes around can be made to come around, especially for those and by those with axes to grind.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponize against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
It is our greatest tragedy that we are governed in Britain now by some of those that hate us. To be more precise, I say that we are governed by those in the pay of those who hate us most of all. I say there is no other way to explain the destruction we are being made victim of, as Britain and the British are taken down, stripped and humiliated because those acts and sights please and excite our tormentors. Genocidal rape is a thing. Look it up. And I say Britain as an entity, as a nation state, is being raped. When I say there's no other explanation for the destruction of this country and its people, it's on account of the many different facets of the controlled demolition. Our national borders are no more. Outsiders are ferried into Britain to change the demographic of the nation, from what it had been for centuries into something else entirely. The demographic change I speak of, and which is undeniable, as it is impossible to ignore, has happened to a greater extent and faster here in Britain during the past couple of decades than in any other country in the West. Praise or lament the fact as you see fit, but it's a fact nonetheless. We are destroyed militarily, of course, a proud history eviscerated to the point where we cannot credibly even defend our own borders. War in Ukraine, enthusiastically stoked by our so-called leaders, is just the latest destination for more of the national income. Suffering Brits, laid low in every way, are made to watch as what little they have left is ripped from their hands and burned to ashes before their eyes as part of the for-profit slaughter in Ukraine. A morally minded military needs a reason to fight, to spill blood, its own and that of others. For-profit warmongers, by contrast, just need a place. In terms of a fighting force, our national plight now is that we exist on the globe only because no one has bothered to attack us yet, at least not in the conventional sense. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is telegraphing her intention to hike taxes again, to take even more from those with next to nothing left to give. No one with an inch of brain matter above the collar thinks you can tax a country into prosperity. Tax the working people of a nation into poverty, while simultaneously paying the unemployed and the unhealthy, and you get what we've got, which is ever-increasing numbers of people choosing not to work, more people eating themselves into disability, more people making choices that wreck rather than build health and well-being, more people adopting disastrous lifestyles born of the realisation of and submission to the economic fact that here in Britain, being unemployed, being sick, pays more bills than working for minimum wage. Reeves is making clear she intends to implement policies that will only increase the speed of the ruinous, anti-human decline of Britain and the British. All of it dressed in the most cynical ways possible to look like positive action. I see tax policies like those pushed by Reeves come from a deliberately destructive place. This isn't about making Britain great, or even enabling Britain to survive as a functioning entity. On the contrary, it's about grinding Britain's face into the dirt out of what I identify as pure malevolence. Britain leads the world in one way, of course, which is to say the ritual bloodletting that our so-called leaders call net zero, and the pursuit of the rest of the ideals of the global suicide note that is Agenda 2030. Like a latter-day Nero fiddling while Rome burns, Energy Secretary Ed Miliband strums his little ukulele while signing off on energy policies that guarantee Britain's end as a place of prosperity and hope. Just as taxpayers' meagre earnings are burned in Ukraine and on the financing of endless numbers of ludicrous money-consuming schemes around the world, so Miliband's energy policies, pumping blood into the otherwise dead-on-arrival lunacy of wind and solar, are another way, only and always, to squander wealth rather than allow it to grow on account of access to affordable and reliable energy. And while we have to watch and listen to Miliband do his part in wrecking the joint, we are also expected to endure the unedifying spectacle of Fabian Prime Minister Keir Starmer on his hind legs at the mocking travesty they call COP30, a gathering of the world's uber parasites that required this time the ripping up of an 8-mile stretch of irreplaceable rainforest to build a highway to the bonfire of the vanities so enjoyed by the super yacht private jet class. Britain has the better part of 500 delegates at COP30, by the by, all sucking on the wrinkled teat of the British taxpayer. While even the odious Bill Gates is publicly changing his tune on climate, pivoting now, because it suits and benefits him, to say that while the changing climate poses problems, it's not the existential crisis he made billions from saying it was 5 minutes ago. More recently, he is refocusing, perhaps sensing the change in the wind, perhaps just driven by the greed that tells him there's more money to be made, faster, by pumping yet more of his mutant mosquitoes into the sky above already pestilent countries riven with malaria. While Gates changes buses on the way to yet more billions, Starmer declares that Britain will double down on its supplication to the false gods of climate crisis. Starmer bleats that when it comes to pushing ruinous, insane policies of destruction on world economies, that the consensus is gone. He means that while he and his ilk want to keep forcing more and more people to drink the toxic Kool-Aid, others have chosen to sober up and get a life. Just for good measure, our own Prince William echoed his rhetoric with some or other hollow platitudes about the need for unity between nations. William can find the nerve to talk about the importance of the rainforest at the same time those old-growth trees are felled to make way for limos. I say we in Britain are in a classic abusive relationship with our so-called leaders. Nonsense of the sort spouted by Reeves, by Miliband, by Starmer and others, stuff purporting to be about making Britain great again while doing precisely the opposite, is the "I only do this because I love you, you know, you make me do these things" interlude before Britain is given another rap in the mouth and pinned down to be shared with our tormentors' globalist pals. Of course I vent spleen at Starmer and co, because he and his cabinet are the nominated targets for our irritation, the monkeys that dance while the organ grinder grinds. I say they are just factotums, actors reciting lines written for them by others. What I really want to know is the identity of the organ grinders. I want to know who it is that's really calling the shots that are ensuring Britain's destruction. I want to know who's grooming Britain. Thanks for watching GB News Originals. I'm Neil Oliver. If you've enjoyed this content, don't forget to click and subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, go to the App Store and download the GB News app.